The investigation that was aimed at Adam Schiff now seems to be turning against the very people who were running it.
Do you remember just about a month ago we got the news that the politicized mortgage fraud investigation into Democratic California Senator Adam Schiff had stalled? After months of investigating, the top federal prosecutor in charge of the case told the DOJ that there was not enough evidence to indict. But that news didn't sound right to conservative activist, realtor, and California congressional candidate Christine Bish. There's a lot packed in there. I mean, Bish claimed that the news couldn't be true. She said that she was the author of the report that initiated the Justice Department's investigation. She said that she was the key witness and that the case couldn't possibly be over because she had been summoned to Maryland, where the case was being investigated for questioning. And it turns he didn't. As Bish put it to CBS News today, they weren't asking her about Schiff. They were asking her about other people who were investigating Schiff. Well, that just got very awkward. Sources familiar with the matter tell ABC News that the FBI realized something fishy was going on when they first went to interview Bish. Quote, when FBI agents first made contact with her, Bish expressed confusion about why federal investigators sought to speak with her again, telling agents that she had repeatedly spoken with a man she believed worked for the Department of Justice. Now, as it turns out, that person Bish had been talking to did not work for the Department of Justice, but he does appear to have been working on Trump's behalf. Now, there's a lot of details here. To understand what is going on here, we have to just zoom out just for a second. If the investigation into Adam Schiff for mortgage fraud sounds familiar to you, it may be because that is what so many of Trump's perceived enemies have been investigated for. New York Attorney General Letitia James, former FBI Director James Comey, Fed Board Governor Lisa Cook, Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, all of them. The Justice Department has investigated all of them for mortgage fraud. All of them claim there's no merit to those investigations. But at the core of those investigations are these two men you can see on your screen, Ed Martin and Bill Pulte. Now, Bill Pulte is the director of the normally somewhat boring Federal Housing Finance Agency. Well, that agency traditionally focuses on our nation's mortgage industry at a macroeconomic scale to prevent, say, another 2008-style housing market collapse. Pulte has instead focused a lot of his time on investigating the mortgages of individuals, and specifically individuals who are perceived enemies of Trump's. There's that. Then there's Ed Martin. Now, you likely remember him as the guy who donned a Columbo-style trench coat, you can see him there, and posed for a photographer from the New York Post outside of New York Attorney General and perceived Trump enemy Letitia James's apartment while he was investigating her for alleged mortgage fraud. There you go, in his costume. Trump appointed Martin to lead his so-called weaponization working group at the Justice Department. Then Pam Bondi made Martin a, quote, special attorney for mortgage fraud. But now today, MS Now reports that a federal grand jury in Maryland is investigating them. Oh, how the tables have turned. I mean, specifically, a federal grand jury in Maryland is investigating whether Bill Pulte and Ed Martin illegally shared sensitive grand jury information with unauthorized people, and whether the investigations that Pulte and Martin were doing were tainted by the investigative methods the two used. Not only could that be used by defense attorneys in the investigations into Adam Schiff and Letitia James to get the cases dismissed, but if the grand jury in Maryland decides to indict Bill Pulte and Ed Martin, they could be looking at criminal charges themselves. Charges like obstruction of justice and contempt of court. Now, when asked about today's news, the Justice Department had no comment. MS Now has also reached out to Bill Pulte for comment, but has yet to hear back. But now that I've kind of zoomed out a little and explained all that context, let's just zoom back in again. Because sources familiar with the matter tell ABC News that someone had been questioning California conservative activist Christine Bish about Adam Schiff's mortgage and claiming they were with the Justice Department. But they weren't actually FBI agents or prosecutors involved in the case. It wasn't Ed Martin. It wasn't Bill Pulte. But that person's question started the investigation that may now have them both in hot water. So who was it? The person she actually had been talking to was this guy.
Here with Robert Bose, who is appointed by Trump, President Trump, to be detailed to the DOJ and do a lot of great things. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing?
Sure. I'm a financial fraud expert. I'm in the Office of Personnel Management, but detailed to DOJ, looking at mortgage fraud and other types of fraud.
Well, that man, Robert Bose, says he was working for the Justice Department. He does not. He is one of two people affected.
This was never just a mortgage fraud investigation. This was never just about Senator Adam Schiff. This was never just about a document filed years ago. This was never just about a suspicious home loan or a questionable line on a disclosure form. This is a story about power, a story about political warfare, story about the fragility of justice in the hands of those who believe they own it. And the biggest question hovering over Washington right now is this: when the law itself becomes a weapon, who will protect justice? For years, Adam Schiff has been a prime target in the political arena. He was the face of the impeachment effort against a president. He became a symbol, either of accountability and truth, or of betrayal and political persecution, depending entirely on whom you ask. And in a nation where politics now defines truth, perhaps it was predictable that one day the system would find a way to try to punish him, not with elections, not with speeches, but with the justice system itself. That's where this mortgage fraud investigation began. Someone raised a complaint. Someone pointed at his public records. Someone insisted that the senator must have broken the law. And soon whispers became headlines. Headlines became scrutiny. Scrutiny became a federal probe. And once your name is tied to the phrase federal criminal investigation, your innocence is no longer enough to protect your reputation. Because in the public's mind, if they're investigating you, there must be something there. But then, after months of searching through every document, every mortgage filing, every financial disclosure, prosecutors came back with a quiet conclusion. There was not enough evidence to indict. Case closed. Move on. Except, the people who wanted this case to happen simply could not believe it was over. They insisted, no, the investigation continues. No, there is more to uncover. No, the truth hasn't been told. And so the story turned again. A witness, Christine Bishop, was summoned. She believed she would be testifying to expose Schiff. She thought prosecutors wanted more information against him. But when she arrived in Maryland, she realized something shocking. They weren't asking about Schiff at all. They were asking about the people who came after him. They were investigating the investigators. And suddenly the script flipped. The hunters had become the hunted. Those who once claimed they were protecting the country from political corruption were now being questioned about whether they corrupted the system for political revenge. Because what happens when an investigation is not about justice, but about settling scores? What happens when federal authority is given not to uphold the law, but to punish enemies? What happens when those inside the Department of